The moment her shirt tore, the diner seemed to stop breathing as if the world itself recoiled in shame. Gray's scented air hung heavy, coffee cups frozen halfway to lips, laughter collapsing into a stunned silence. In that single second, a young woman stood exposed not just in fabric but in dignity, fear, and disbelief, while the people who caused it still didn't realize how badly they had misjudged who she was and what kind of storm they had just invited into their lives. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for people when they are at their lowest, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us who we choose to be when no one is watching. Her name was Lily, and she had chosen that diner for the same reason she chose it every week. It was quiet, predictable, and far enough from the road that memories didn't ambush her when she least expected them. The vinyl booths were cracked with age, the waitress always remembered her order, and the hum of the neon sign outside made the world feel smaller and safer. Lily was not weak, though she often looked like it. She had learned long ago that softness was a survival strategy, not a flaw. She kept her head down, smiled politely, and avoided conflict because peace had been hard-won and easily shattered. The men at the next booth had arrived loud, impatient, and already drunk on their own entitlement. They took up space like they owned it, boots stretched into the aisle, laughter spilling over each other, voices sharpened by cruelty disguised as humor. Lily noticed them the way prey notices movement in tall grass. Instinctively, with a tightening in her chest, she told herself not to overthink it. She always did. Most people passed through her life without leaving scars. She hoped they would too. But cruelty often looks for the quiet ones. A careless bump became a deliberate shove, a joke turned into mockery. Laughter sharpened into something meaner, heavier. When one of them grabbed at her shirt, meant as a joke in their minds, the fabric tore far more easily than anyone expected. The sound was small, almost insignificant, but its impact echoed through the diner like a gunshot. Lily froze. Heat rushed to her face, then drained away, leaving her cold and exposed in a way that had nothing to do with skin. She clutched the torn fabric, her hands trembling, eyes darting around the room, searching for help, or at least humanity. Some people looked away, embarrassed or afraid. Others stared, unsure what to do. No one moved quickly enough. Shame wrapped itself around her like a second injury, heavier than the first. The men laughed, not understanding that laughter can become a weapon when wielded without empathy. What they couldn't see was the weight Lily carried behind her eyes. They didn't know she had spent years rebuilding herself after loss, after violence, after learning how easily trust could be broken. They didn't know she worked 2 jobs, sent money home, and still found time to volunteer at a shelter because she refused to let bitterness be the thing that defined her. They didn't know she had learned to be gentle because life had never been gentle with her. As she fled to the bathroom, the diner slowly exhaled. The manager shouted apologies that came too late. The men scoffed, rolling their eyes, convinced it was all being blown out of proportion. To them, it was nothing, a prank, a story they would forget by morning. They had no idea that Lily's hands shaking over the sink were the same hands that had once wrapped wounds, held broken people together, and survived more than they could ever imagine. In the bathroom's harsh fluorescent light, Lily pressed paper towels against her chest, tears slipping down despite her efforts to stay composed. She hated crying in public, hated feeling small, hated that a moment like this could undo years of healing. She thought about leaving town, about disappearing the way she had before when the world became too loud. But then she thought about her brother. Most people who saw Lily would never guess where she came from. They would never connect her quiet demeanor to the roar of engines, the smell of oil and leather, the fierce loyalty of a family built on survival. Her brother Jack was everything she was not on the surface. Loud where she was quiet, fearless where she was cautious, protective to a fault. He rode with the Hells Angels not because he loved violence, but because the club had once saved his life when no one else would. They were family in the truest sense, bound not just by blood, but by loyalty and rules that did not bend easily. Lily rarely spoke of him. She didn't need his name to open doors or close mouths. She wanted a life separate from that world, one built on her own terms. But family ties don't disappear just because you try to outrun them. They wait patiently, like engines idling in the dark. Outside the diner, one of the men made a call, bragging about what had happened, his laughter carrying across the parking lot. He didn't know that words have a way of traveling faster than intended, especially in small towns where everyone knows someone who knows someone else. By the time Lily stepped back out, wrapped in a borrowed sweater and hollow with exhaustion, the story had already begun to change shape. The shift was subtle at first, a sudden quiet as engines approached, the low, unmistakable rumble of motorcycles cutting through the night air like a warning. Heads turned, laughter died, fear crept in, slow and unwelcome. The men stiffened, instinctively sensing that whatever was coming was not something they could laugh off. The bikes pulled in with deliberate calm, not rushing, not posturing. Just presence, leather jackets, patched backs, eyes that had seen enough of the world to know when something was wrong. Jack dismounted last. His gaze swept the scene, taking in the torn fabric, his sister's pale face, the way she tried to stand taller than she felt. Something in him hardened, not with rage alone, but with a quiet, dangerous resolve. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just the kind of silence that demands accountability. The men suddenly found their confidence evaporating under the weight of consequences they had never considered. Jack didn't need to introduce himself. His reputation arrived before he did. But more than that, his posture said everything. This was not about dominance. It was about respect. Lily didn't want revenge. She wanted dignity restored. She wanted the world to understand that kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. Jack saw that. He always had. Instead of violence, there was something far more unsettling for the men who had laughed earlier. They were made to see her as a person. They were made to apologize, not quickly or casually, but sincerely under the watchful eyes of people who understood the value of accountability. The diner manager called the police. Statements were taken. Consequences followed, not because of who Jack was, but because what happened mattered. Because Lily mattered. The men left smaller than they arrived, their laughter replaced with something like shame. The town would remember. Stories like this tend to linger. In the days that followed, Lily struggled with conflicting emotions. Gratitude and guilt. Strength and vulnerability. She hated that her brother's world had intersected with hers, yet she was thankful beyond words that he had shown up not as an avenger, but as a shield. Healing is rarely clean or linear. It's messy, filled with steps forward and backward. But something inside her shifted. The shame that had wrapped around her that night began to loosen its grip. People from the diner reached out. The waitress wrote her a note. A stranger paid for her coffee one morning and left without saying a word. Small acts, but they mattered. They reminded Lily that cruelty may be loud, but kindness endures. She began to sit a little straighter, to meet the world's gaze instead of avoiding it. Not because she felt fearless, but because she felt supported. Jack returned to the road eventually, engines fading into the distance once more. Before he left, he hugged her longer than usual, a silent promise that she was never alone, no matter how quiet her life seemed. Lily watched him go, feeling something close to peace settle in her chest. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. And before this story ends, leave a comment saying one word that represents what kindness means to you. Lily still visits the diner. She still orders the same meal. But now, when she sits in that booth, she does so with a deeper understanding of her own strength. She knows that being gentle in a hard world is an act of courage. She knows that family can be both the life you choose and the one that chooses you. And she knows that even when the world tries to tear you apart, you are more than the worst thing that ever happened to you.